It was 30 years ago today that the verdict in the trial of the century was read. Let's go back to October 3rd, 1995. The O.J. Simpson murder trial was more than just a legal proceeding. It was a cultural phenomenon that divided a nation and captivated the world. On June 12, 1994, the brutal murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ronald Goldman sent shockwaves through the Los Angeles area. The primary suspect was none other than Nicole's ex-husband, football legend and celebrity O.J. Simpson. What followed was a 16-month saga of courtroom drama, racial tension, and media frenzy that culminated in a verdict so unexpected it would be debated for decades. This is the story of the trial that became known as the trial of the century. The investigation began immediately. Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were found stabbed to death outside Nicole's Brentwood condominium. The crime scene was bloody and chaotic. As detectives pieced together the evidence, their focus quickly zeroed in on O.J. Simpson. He had a history of domestic abuse, with Nicole giving him a clear motive. A bloody glove found at the scene and another glove found at his estate seemed to be a direct link. A trail of blood drops, one in Simpson's infamous white Bronco and others on his driveway and in his home, appeared to create an undeniable forensic link. But before he could be formally charged, O.J. Simpson vanished. What unfolded on June 17, 1994, was one of the most bizarre moments in television history. A low-speed Bronco chase unfolded on the freeways of Los Angeles, broadcast live to millions of stunned viewers. Simpson was in the back seat of the white Ford Bronco, driven by his friend Al Collings, holding a gun to his own head. An estimated 95 million Americans tuned in. Their screen split between the chase and the NBA Finals. It was a surreal spectacle, a real-life drama that blurred the lines between celebrity, tragedy, and entertainment. The chase ended at Simpson's Brentwood mansion, where he was taken into custody. The stage was set for a legal battle unlike any other. In a move that would define the trial, the prosecution, which was led by Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden, decided to hold the trial in downtown Los Angeles, rather than the more affluent Santa Monica area, where the crime had actually occurred. This decision meant the jury would be drawn from a more diverse urban pool. The defense team was assembled. It was led by Johnny Cochran and included a DNA expert and Robert Shapiro, who had initially led the defense. The prosecution had seemed to have a mountain of evidence: DNA, the gloves, the history of abuse, and the bloody trail. But the defense had a different strategy. From the very beginning, the defense didn't just aim to create a reasonable doubt, they aimed to create an alternative narrative. Their central theme was that O.J. Simpson was a victim of a racist and corrupt police conspiracy. They argued that the Los Angeles Police Department, desperate to close a high-profile case, had planted and manipulated evidence to frame a prominent black man. This narrative found a powerful symbol in Detective Mark Fuhrman, the officer who had found the bloody glove on Simpson's property. The defense would systematically dismantle his credibility and use them to tar the entire LAPD. The prosecution presented its case with a focus on the forensic evidence. They brought in experts to explain how the blood drops, the DNA, and the glove all pointed directly to Simpson as the killer. They also detailed the history of domestic violence, painting a picture of a man with a violent temper. But the prosecution made several critical missteps. They decided to have Simpson try on the bloody leather glove in court, a decision that would backfire spectacularly. In a tense courtroom moment, Simpson struggled to put the gloves over his hands, leading defense attorney Johnny Cochran to utter the immortal phrase, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." This simple rhyming line became the unforgettable summary of the defense's argument. The defense team systematically attacked every piece of the prosecution's case. They suggested that the blood evidence could have been planted by corrupt police officers. They highlighted errors in evidence collection and chain of custody. Their masterpiece was the takedown of Detective Mark Fuhrman. The defense presented tapes of Fuhrman using racial slurs and lying under oath about his use of such language. This allowed the defense to argue that a racist cop had the means, motive, and opportunity to plant the crucial glove, thereby casting doubt on all the evidence. The trial became less about whether O.J. Simpson committed the murders and more about whether the LAPD could be trusted. After months of testimony, the case went to the jury. 9 months had passed since the trial began. The jury had been sequestered for 266 days. That's the longest in California history at the time. The entire country held its breath. But on October 3rd, 1995, the verdict was read. The courtroom was silent, the nation was watching, and the words came. We, the jury, in the above, entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder. The reaction was immediate and deeply split. In the courtroom, Simpson's family and black supporters erupted in cheers. Across the country, many others, particularly white Americans, watched in stunned belief. It was a moment that exposed the deep racial issues in American society. The acquittal of O.J. Simpson was the end of the criminal trial, but not the end of the story. The families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman filed a civil suit against Simpson. Since the standard of proof is lower, they didn't have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So in 1997, a civil jury found O.J. Simpson liable for the deaths and ordered him to pay $33.5 million in damages. This verdict provided a stark contrast to the criminal trial and left many questions of his guilt or innocence hauntingly unresolved in the minds of many. The O.J. Simpson case remains a landmark event, a complete tapestry woven from threads of celebrity, race, justice, and media, whose legacy continues to be debated to this day. There were some odd things that happened during the case. One of the most bizarre events was the low-speed Bronco chase. It wasn't a frantic escape, but a surreal, slow-moving procession down a Los Angeles freeway, with millions of people watching on TV, as if it were a movie. People lined the overpasses, some cheering for Simpson, turning a potential suicide and felony evasion into a public spectacle. The suicide note that Robert Kardashian read to the media just before the chase was kind of strange. It was a rambling, first-person letter that was part love letter to Nicole, part denial of any wrongdoing, and part farewell to his friends. It read almost like a script from a movie, adding to the theatric theme of the event. The bloody glove demonstrated that what a catastrophic failure for the prosecution. The decision to have O.J. try on the gloves, which had shrunk from being soaked in blood and then dried, was a massive miscalculation. The visual of Simpson struggling to put them on was powerful. Televised, it was a moment that the defense capitalized on perfectly. And then Judge Lance Ito himself became a celebrity. He would grant TV interviews from his chambers during the trial and became the subject of late-night comedy sketches. His management of the courtroom was often criticized as being too accommodating for theatrics, turning the judge into a character in his own drama. And the media's obsession reached a fever pitch. Cameras were placed on the courtroom ceilings, giving the public 24/7 viewing of the proceedings. This led to the creation of what was essentially, what we would call trial porn, with entire networks dedicated to analyzing every single moment, every facial expression, and every piece of evidence ad nauseum. And then there was Brian Cato Kalin, Simpson's house guest. He became an unlikely star. His laid-back, surfer dude testimony and his blank stares made him a household name and a target for the comedians. He was a peripheral character who became a central figure in the public's imagination. And then finally, the discovery that a key member of the prosecution's team, Christopher Darden, had been writing a book about the case during the trial, and it was a major ethical breach and kind of a very strange development. It raised serious questions about his motives and focus while he was supposed to be seeking justice for the victims. So, all in all, the O.J. Simpson trial was kind of a made-for-TV, weird and odd event, and it all came to an end on October 3rd, 1995, with the guilty verdict. If you like this story, Come back to the Daily Pastcast channel on YouTube every day for stories like this. We go in depth to something that happened on this day in history. If you like the video, like it, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again tomorrow on October 4th.